In 1969, a nuclear reactor in America came alive, a symbol of humanity mastering the atom. Every few months, new plants lit up hundreds of thousands of homes. It was the golden age of nuclear energy. 5 years from blueprint to reality, a world powered by progress and promise. And then, almost overnight, it all stopped. The turbines fell silent, the cranes froze, and the dream of limitless clean energy vanished. What really happened? Why did America, the very nation that split the atom, suddenly turn its back on its own creation? And more importantly, what can India learn from that colossal mistake? In 1979, a small mechanical failure at the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant in Pennsylvania ignited one of the greatest public panics in modern history. Newsrooms exploded with headlines of nuclear nightmare. Anchors spoke of invisible death and radiation leaks, as if apocalypse had arrived. But here's the truth they never told the world. No deaths occurred, and extensive studies have found no measurable long-term health effects. The real disaster wasn't the reactor. It was fear. Fear seeded carefully over years, through misleading headlines, half-truths, and Hollywood fiction. Fear that convinced an entire generation that the energy of the future was a threat to their survival. And that fear came with a cost. In the span of just 5 years, the cost and time to build a nuclear plant in the U.S. increased tenfold. Construction times increased significantly, often doubling or more due to stricter regulations and safety requirements. Investors backed out. Governments froze. Scientists retired. By the late 1980s, the U.S. nuclear industry had slowed dramatically, with new plant construction dropping sharply, almost abandoning the cleanest source of energy humanity had ever created. While politicians argued, the world continued burning coal, oil, and gas, choking skies with carbon and warming oceans by the year. A single nuclear plant can power an entire city like San Francisco, cleanly, reliably, without emitting a single molecule of carbon dioxide. Yet decades of fear-mongering turned it into a taboo. It's an irony India must never forget, because fear kills progress faster than failure ever could. For decades, the public was told that any radiation, no matter how small, was dangerous, that even a glimpse of nuclear material could cause cancer or death. But the science tells a different story. Every human being is bathed in radiation, every single day. It comes from the sun, the soil beneath our feet, even the food we eat. Fly from Delhi to London, and you'll absorb more radiation than a worker at a modern nuclear plant. A climber on Mount Everest takes in 3 years' worth of radiation in one journey. And yet, Sherpas who live there for months each year are among the healthiest people on Earth. Even in the aftermath of Fukushima, a disaster that shook the world, countless scientific studies have found no measurable rise in deaths, sickness, or cancer. Chernobyl, humanity's darkest nuclear event, caused tragedy, yes. But even there, the immediate death toll stood at around 30. Scientists continue to study the long-term effects of radiation exposure, and while the numbers remain debated, most estimates suggest the fatalities likely reach into the low thousands, not the tens of thousands once feared. In other words, routine pollution, air quality issues, mining accidents, and health impacts from fossil fuels collectively kill far more people annually than that nuclear accident did. So if radiation wasn't the killer, what was? Bureaucracy. In the United States before 1970, there were just a few hundred regulations governing nuclear power. By the end of that decade, there were nearly 2,000. Each new rule, however small, added new layers of cost, delay, and confusion. Engineers would finish a section of a plant, only to be told to tear it down and rebuild it slightly differently because a new rule had just passed. By the late 1970s, nuclear projects were hemorrhaging money. Delays drained millions each month. Some plants were abandoned halfway, utilities teetered, and investors turned cautious. And those months stretched into years. Entire plants were abandoned halfway. Investors fled. Utilities went bankrupt. Fear, not physics, destroyed nuclear power. By the 1980s, nuclear engineers were leaving the field. Manufacturers shut down. Entire generations of knowledge disappeared. And when interest rates skyrocketed, no one wanted to fund something that might take 20 years to complete. So the United States, the birthplace of nuclear energy, stopped building nuclear plants altogether. Only 4 new reactors have been completed there since 1996. A nation that once dreamed of clean, infinite energy had chosen to be afraid of its own shadow. And this, right here, is where India stands at a crossroads. A nation of 1.4 billion dreams cannot rely on coal forever. Oil imports drain billions from our economy every month. Renewables like solar and wind, as promising as they are, simply cannot run 24/7. And that's where nuclear power stands. India's first nuclear reactor, Apsara, was switched on in 1956, built under the vision of Homi J. Bhabha, who once said, "No power is as boundless as the power of the atom, if used for peace." Yet for decades, India has hesitated, slowed down by global politics, sanctions, and fear of the very same myths that destroyed nuclear progress in the West. We've been told it's dangerous, that it's expensive, that it's not worth the risk. But is that really true? When we strip away the fear and look at the cold, hard facts, the numbers speak for themselves. Between 1969 and 2000, the human cost of energy production is staggering. Coal claimed hundreds of thousands of lives, oil and gas tens of thousands, and even hydroelectric dams occasionally failed with devastating consequences. By comparison, nuclear power caused fewer than 100 confirmed immediate deaths during the same period. A single modern nuclear plant, occupying less land than 4 central parks, can power an entire metropolis. Every home, every factory, every train. Solar farms, even in ideal conditions, need many times more land than a nuclear plant. Wind farms require even more, due to turbine spacing and lower energy density. And when the sky clouds over or the wind dies, every megawatt vanishes. Nuclear, on the other hand, stays awake, day or night, rain or shine. And yet, every time the word nuclear is spoken in the public square, the ghosts of fear rise again. Yes, renewables are the future, but they come with their own price. Large solar farms can disrupt local ecosystems and limit vegetation beneath their panels. Wind turbines kill thousands of birds, eagles, and bats every year. Their massive blades, made of composite materials, end up in landfills, where they will never decompose. Meanwhile, a single nuclear plant can run for 80 years or more, producing clean energy round the clock, quietly, safely, efficiently. Perhaps the biggest fear: nuclear waste. The image of glowing green barrels and radioactive leaks has been burned into our imagination by decades of movies and media. But in reality, nuclear waste is small, solid, and safely stored. Each reactor produces about 1 block of waste per year, the size of a small household refrigerator, enough to power 1 million homes. These containers can't just leak or be stolen. They're encased in thick concrete, impossible to carry without cranes, and useless to anyone trying to build a weapon. Locked inside these blocks is material so deadly and complex, no one can touch it or use it without facing almost certain failure. The fear of nuclear waste is not science, it's storytelling. India has been quietly scripting one of the most ambitious chapters in modern energy history. From Tarapur to Kudankulam, from Kalpakkam to the upcoming Gorakhpur plant, every site tells a story of persistence, innovation, and quiet national pride. Step by step, India has built not just reactors, but resilience. While the world debated the future of clean energy, Indian scientists chose to create it, often with limited resources but limitless resolve. In research labs and reactor halls, they achieved what few nations dared to attempt: developing advanced systems that could one day run not on uranium, but on thorium. Thorium, a metal found abundantly in Indian soil, holds the promise of a safer, cleaner, and virtually inexhaustible source of power. It could fuel India's growth for centuries. India stands among the rare few nations capable of designing, building, and operating nuclear reactors end-to-end, without depending on foreign blueprints. Every successful reactor, every critical experiment, every milestone, is a declaration that India's destiny can be powered by its own intellect and resources. Yet the pace remains slow, not because of technology, but because of perception. Fear has done what even sanctions could not. It has stalled the Indian dream of energy independence. But change is coming. A new generation of reactors, small modular reactors, or SMRS, is rewriting the rule book. When Homi Bhabha imagined India's nuclear future, he didn't see danger. He saw dignity. He saw a nation that could light every home without choking its skies, a civilization that could rise without destroying its planet.